Okay. So am I so we going now? Okay. Well, I am on YouTube Live. So what's that housing called again? So anyway, I found out about so there's a lot of things going on in life. Whew, a lot of things going on. But um so some of the things was well just yesterday. Was it yesterday? At the hospital? At the hospital. I had to go to the hospital because I up or whatever. And it's for pain issues, uterine pain that I've been having for 20 plus years, I'm sure. And I always take more than a dosage recommended because of the extreme pain. Um, so that was a whole ordeal. It was very interesting because, of course, they kept asking me, was I trying to kill myself? And it made sense and I appreciated it. But once I explained the situation and how I've been to the emergency room a number of times because of those issues, I thought they would let it go until they had the like psychologists come and like say that they wanted to admit me. And I'm like, no, like I'm fine. Like literally, like the way y'all can help me is by giving me some pain medication that will actually work for me. Anyway, that just happened yesterday. And I was talking to my roommate about this. So I just found out that there is housing, and I'm fine if you consider me late to this, but there's housing that people can live in that's rent free. And I didn't know that. That is a whole new concept to me that I know there's income based housing, right? Like based off your income. And I think that's needed. But like there's legitimately, if you don't work at all, there's housing for that too, which in my mind, of course, like my mom has always had a job, multiple jobs actually. That's all I've ever known. But having income based housing is definitely needed for a lot of parents who, um, based off their jobs, if they're single, there's so many reasons for that. So, of course, in my mind, I'm like, it makes sense. But then to know, like, that there is no plan in that, right? Like, okay, you don't have a job right now. What's the plan to help people get jobs? Um, that's really what bothered me. Like, are you trying to help people to be producers in society? Um, and realizing that's a mindset that is passed down to future generations. I just found this out like literally like last week, so this is really new to me, and I want to look more into it. And this is not like any slight against anybody's situation. Everybody's situations are nuanced, right? So this is not like a one size fit all. I think that is a bunch of crap. We try to do that. Nobody fits to one little box. Um, but I could see how that could be the trap. So when I talked to my homeboy about it, because he said it's a trap, and he was like, it's people in the hoods that are living, they're not having to work, they have Mercedes Benzes, and have all these different kids. And even when he said that, I was like, well, how are they able to have that? And he was like, well, if you're living off child support or these different things, blah, blah, blah. Once again, I'm like, I'm sure there are people that are doing that, but I refuse to believe that is majority of people. I know many people have hard situations. So I'm not here to make a judgment, but I do think uh, just in me knowing that now, that it just opened my eyes to something different and new because a friend of mine was also, I have a number of friends actually who are going through some child support issues. which had me having a lot of conversations about honestly how our sexual choices they matter, and not just to the individuals who are involved in the sexual activity, but to your future generations, right? So just knowing that your sexual choices matter, they do, and to your kids, and to your kids' kids, and to your kids' teachers who teach your kids who are mad at y'all because the choices that y'all made and y'all don't like each other. Like, no one makes decisions in a vacuum. And I know we think we do, and we're so autonomous, and what I do is my business. But guess what? It does affect other people if you don't know how to manage it. So that led to those conversations because apparently some of my friends have mothers of their children that they don't particularly care for. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. You may not care for them, but for the sake of your child, you need to respect them the best way you know how and learn how to work with and manage the same way you go to work with somebody every day whom you didn't choose. When you chose to be with this person, at least for a moment, and those choices matter. Like they matter. And they don't just matter for you, they matter for whoever you produce into this world. And you just gotta make the best of a situation that you didn't necessarily foresee. It ain't about beating yourself over the head. It ain't about, none of us are sum total of our situations. We're complex people, but it just gotta be said. Like, all of our choices matter. But I think sometimes society, or there's a narrative that makes us believe that our sexual choices are just our own and they don't matter to anybody else. And that's just not true. It's just not true. How we treat people matters, period. How we engage people matters. Um, so, yeah, those things are some of the things we talked about. Then this is just challenge, it's 30-day challenge, 30-day sex challenge. So to have sex for 30 days straight, and I don't even know what the goal of it is. I need to go and check it out. But me and my friends were talking about that because I personally, my belief personally is that God meant for sex to be enjoyed in marriage. That's my belief, and I can definitely do another discussion about this at a different time. But of course, we know in the 30-day sex challenge, everybody don't agree with that. That's not even the point. The point is that it brought up us talking about how we wonder how married people who are married are going to respond to that, and how people who are not married, which back it up, into how a number of my single friends who are single well into their 30s actually, me, my whole life I've thought this, but for some reason I always thought that married couples just seem to be so much less happy than everybody else. And trust me, I like whenever I saw happy couples, like it was like to me it was automatic. Like they must be dating a boyfriend and girlfriend. They could have been boyfriend and girlfriend for 20 years, mind you. But it still is different than a married couple for 5 years, or 10 years, or 20 years. That's what I felt. Now my brother and his wife, listen, let me tell you, they regular people, but I love their love. And it's honest love. It comes with ups and down love. It's not in by any means perfect, but it's what works for them. Um, and there are a couple of married couples that I could probably think about. if I keep on thinking that, I'm sure, seem happy. And once again, happiness looks so different for different people, right? You don't have to be a PDA couple to be happy. You could be perfectly happy, not displaying affection in front of others, but at home you do it, right? That's between you two. I'm just saying, from someone who already felt like being married was a drudgery and it was just a weight or a chain, especially on the women, and all the work was put on the woman. As a woman, I just really felt like, what can you give me the upside of the situation? I really, felt that way. So anyway, my friend said that she got a group of married people together, have some discussions or whatever. And basically, she was saying, like, why is it that y'all, and I thought this was a good question, why is it that you guys want and try to encourage single people to be married, and you encourage that and want that, but like, then you also say that once you're married, like, that's where sex goes to die. And it's like, you ain't really, like, that ain't appealing to nobody. Who wants that? And not that marriage is just about sex at all, but we are definitely created sexual beings. So if you tell me, yeah, marriage is so great, finding somebody to marry, just know that you'll be greatly disappointed sexually, or just all these different things. I think give realities, but why is that? I would love, and I'm not talking about this Hollywood, or not even just Hollywood sex. I'm not talking about porn sex, right? That's what many of us are used to in our minds. So I would say deconstruct that, right? This porn sex. As soon as I see you, though that can happen. Um, I am abstinent, but that is anyway. So, but anyway, just the reality of, yes, there's spontaneity in sexual experiences. Could be and should be, right? But yeah, I haven't seen porn since I was little. So I'm just thinking about back when I was little and just when I would see stuff. Um, or Uncle Luke, face down, butts up. That's the way we like to, you know what I'm saying? That's the generation that I was brought up in, 12 play, all that. Like back in high school and junior high, I consider that sex different as well, right? Did nobody know what they was doing? You know what he was doing. Um, so even that is very different. But it was a lot of spontaneity, definitely. Not a lot of planning this. And I won't go into all that because my mom may see this. And yeah, so anyway, the point being is I would love, I just think these conversations are important, right? So I'm just talking, this is off the top of my head. These are just things that we talked about with the 30-day challenge, you know, how and why these different things happen. So one thing I said, right, from talking to some people, married people, and people who were no longer married, there is, and I got some feedback, right? There is one thing to see your boo a few times a week, once a week, maybe on a weekend, spend a weekend with him. And he have annoying habits like he be smacking with his mouth open, or she be farting all the time, right? And that's fine. It's okay because I don't like it, but it's cool. But it's another thing when every single day, you doing that. Now, there's only so much that someone could love about different idiosyncrasies that we all have. So I was like, okay, I do get the okay after a while, right? The familiarity just kind of is like, look, I see you every day. I lay next to you every day. Like I'm kind of okay, right? So that's when we got into how you have groups of people who, okay, so you know what's thunder and lightning, right? You still gonna go? 7. Okay. Come on, Marcy. I was thinking we could give you a gift to Natalie as a going away. Oh yes, we could give it to her. Okay. You could go out and see a nice. Sounds good to me, boo. Okay, I'm gonna make about it. Look, it's thundering. Ashley, are you sure? Yeah. Okay. It is. Okay. So anyway, we start talking about, yeah, just those realities, right? So I was like, okay, that makes sense. Okay. And I'm sure there's other things that people can comment on, and not to be in nobody's business, but which I think sometimes too people feel like, that's my business and I don't want to tell nobody nothing, which I feel like that's unfortunate to some degree because people can learn things from other people. Everybody shouldn't just have to learn stuff from experience. Experience is a hard teacher. It's one of those teachers that you won't forget, but that you don't really like them that much. You know what I'm saying? So, anyway, but we talked about that 30-day challenge, and yeah, just how married couples versus people who are basically married, but they just don't have the legality with it. Okay. Then my homeboy was telling me about how, okay, so this is a whole nother subject, about how men now are trying to, is this abstain, not abstain, basically waive their rights to their children so they won't have to pay child support. And I was like, yo, okay, wait, what does that actually mean? And he was like, basically, just like a woman can say, I don't want to have this child. I don't want to carry a child. So I can have an abortion. I can do what I want to with my body. He said, well, what if the man doesn't want to have that child? Why put on him to have to take care of a child that he tells you that he doesn't want, but you want? And then try to put the money on, try to put it on him to take care of. So I was like, yo, like, I don't know about that. But then I'm like, but dang, like I mean, you can disagree all day, but if we're saying one is okay, then that's I'm saying I'm not. But the reality is, if we can say that the woman can say, this is my body, I do what I want to, whether I can have it or not, is my choice. Damn. All right. And he is saying, all right, it is your choice. And it's my choice to say that I don't want nothing to do with that child because I told you I didn't want the child anyway. That's jacked up still, because once again, our sexual choices matter. It just goes back to that, really. You know what I'm saying? Like, even that discussion. If one of y'all want a child, like it's all these different things that go into it. Like, there should be some type of agreement. It shouldn't. I mean, and granted, we have people who sneaky, manipulative, all this kind of stuff. There's all kind of nuance of situations, but I'm talking about this whole thing of men waiving rights and basically saying, I don't want nothing to do with this child, legally being able to do this so that they won't have to pay anything for this child. Yo, I'm like, yo, we live in this world where everybody wants rights for different things, and the reality is, without any type of overarching standard, right? I mean, if enough people fight for a right, it's going. That's just the kind of situation that we live in, and we like that freedom. We do. So when you have people doing it, dang, you know what I'm saying? That may seem wrong because once again, who does it really affect, right? Who does it really affect? When your children are in school and they see these different parents coming in, caring for their children, they ask questions all the time. And we need to be willing to talk to our kids about these different things. That's another thing. Instead of just like shooing them off or like making it like it's no big deal or whatever. As a teacher, I'm just saying I try to engage my kids in whatever ways they're thinking and learning, right? I believe it takes a village to raise a child. It is definitely the parents' first and foremost responsibility, right? But I come alongside in the ways that I have the platform to, never trying to step over anybody's parents. At the same time, I teach from my worldview, and that's just what it's going to be. You know what I'm saying? So, in one of my YouTube videos, I talked about how, kids already at 4 coming in talking about, I have kids coming in class already saying that they don't like their skin, that are brown skin, and, I can see, you're not liking your hair, your skin, I think that's a humanness, but then they're preferring the lighter skinned children. Well, that's interesting, you know, why is that? And I've heard, kids, because it's better. So the value judgment put on somebody else's skin being better, that's interesting than just different. Like I like the differentness of it, right? Um, so even that's the conversations of, well, what makes it better? What does better mean to you? Has anyone ever told you that it was better? But like I talked to my homeboy about today, I said, listen, what I've learned is even thinking about silent movies from back in the day. And that movie that came out where basically they're not supposed to say anything, I thought that was the most beautiful movie ever. You gotta be a good actor to have silence and display everything that someone that uses their voice says. It was brilliant. I loved it. In fact, there's a part 2. But just listen, images matter. I'm like, you can have the TV on mute and show them the same exact things. And if what they see is all these images of positivity, or beauty, or like the amount of times that you see things in like a certain lighting, even gives your eyes and your image and your brain, it sends messages, right? Um, a certain outcome of a particular character, how they're praised or loved on or shunned. Those are things that we see even more than we hear what they're saying. And these kids are seeing stuff. They're seeing a lot of things by 4 when I get them to have already come to a conclusion in their mind of, kids not even wanting to use the brown crayon that looks just like them. That's an ugly color. Well, that's the same color as my skin. Are you saying my skin is ugly? I'm saying my skin is ugly. Hold up. Okay, let's stop right there. Your skin was handcrafted by a creator that only does good things. Your skin is beautiful. Your skin is just for you. It's specifically made for you. And you are beautiful. You are special. There's nobody else in the world like you. Like, these are conversations that I'm just like, oh my gosh, So, but even with sexuality, listen, the number of kids that have been exposed to the different types of sexual things that they've been exposed to by 5 and 6, And it's parents legitimately feeling justified by just talking to their kids when they become teenagers. You don't want nobody else to talk to them about them, but trust. They are. So you don't want no adult talking to them about those things. And that's fine. Adults can respect that. But the other kids who talking to them about it and showing them things, you don't know about those because you're not engaging them and talking to them. So that's a whole other thing. I definitely know I was personally, from what I remember, and my memory is not good at all, definitely exposed to my first sexual experiences when I was in at least first grade. And that's just what I can remember. I think it was first. I think I was at least in first grade. Anyway, so and of course, I get parents not feeling like at 6 years old talking to a child about sex. No, it don't make no sense. Especially if I mean I was a quiet kid, so I'm not about to ask nobody. But especially if they're not asking you nothing. You just thinking that they just going to school. Yeah, I was going to school, all right. I was getting school. And my hope is that that won't happen to anybody else. But when I talk to people, that has happened to what it seemed like a lot of people else. So that's why I'm just like, yo, like knowing that your kids have interest in the opposite sex. When I saw kids in my classroom kind of hold hands and kiss each other, and once again, it's what they see. It's what they see, you know? Or even in the same sex. It's what they see. These are the conversations. Just I can't see it being easy. I can't see it being easy. I remember when my friend, my her little daughter, we'll call her my little goddaughter, she told me the first time some boy at her school, she was in kindergarten or first grade, whatever. Twana, you remember this? You told me that little Stephanie said some little boy hurt her heart. I just about lost my mind. And you asking me what to do, and I was like, girl. And then you asking her more questions. What what do you mean hurt your heart? How did he hurt your heart? Why do you say that? And her daughter was like, because he went to go hug another girl, whoever the girl was, and he sat next to her, and she asked her, like, well, he sit next to other people too, doesn't he? I mean, yeah, but he sat next to her. Like, this was a legit, like, I'm feeling the type of way. Y'all, I was like, I don't fully remember, but I definitely know what I know about my own self and my own experiences. And I don't, that's the way we are made up as people. As I mean, shoot, animals even. So of course it's people. Does that light help? Mm. But anyway, this is just me ranting and talking about all these different things. What else? I talked about a little bit about child support, sexual decisions. They matter just as much as any other decision, is my point. I don't think they matter more. So don't hear me saying I'm on that tip of, um, you know, having sex with somebody is the worst thing you could ever do and all this kind of stuff. That's not the tip that I'm on. I'm just saying don't think that those choices don't matter and they just are your personal choices that don't affect nobody else. Um, they are included in the way you treat people. So that's what we talked about, intimacy. So the 30-day challenge led to a person in this group that I'm in, a couple people were talking about how there's another challenge, specifically for Black people, Black couples, to cultivate intimacy. And that's something that I said was really interesting because I never, that's always been a different thing for me. So I am a very physical person. And intimacy, even knowing what that is, I think for many people, and meaning myself too, but is nuanced and new, right? So they were talking about, for instance, things like looking into someone's eyes for a number of minutes, or kissing for this long, and looking into each other's eyes, or holding hands, and being close to someone, or giving, just all these different things. And I thought that was so interesting to have that challenge, because I do feel like there is a lost art, I guess, if you will, of, once again, probably I think for myself, I'll speak for me, but the whole Uncle Luke, Adina Howard, just I'll be your freak type generation, and Uncle Luke definitely raised me. I'm be honest. I was brought up in the church too. I went to church, definitely. But let me just say, everybody at the church was also raised by Uncle Luke. I'm just saying. Now, you and you could be on that one. Seriously, my age. I'm talking about my age. But there just was not this sense of, I'm sure there were some people, but I never, like, even with, what was I gonna say? Even with seeing people in intimate situations always made me uncomfortable. Sex didn't, porn didn't. It just was like the non-sexual aspect of it. I honestly, personally, it would make me feel uncomfortable. And there is a sense of intimacy that is a sense of knownness that goes deeper. That's a whole nother conversation too. But we were talking about that, how that challenge we thought was needed along with the 30-day sex challenge, because the 30-day sex challenge could probably be for couples too who just gave up on sex. Or look, that's another thing I heard about. It was something called sexless marriages. Listen, I I I think, once again, people's situations are so nuanced and different, and so, but to have a title for sex, like, I'm like, so my homeboy was saying how guys like really are so concerned about having sexless marriages. So I'm like, so what do you do? Like, how do you fight that concern? Like, what are you going to do? Because I'm sure these same people were having sex before they were married. I mean, not that I'm sure. I don't know, right? I don't know people who are having sex with marriages, actually, personally. But my point is, like, for many couples, I'm sure they were having sex at some point, especially if they have kids or something. So I'm like, to come up with, have a whole term about sexless marriages. Look, I'm just talking about stuff that I've been taught, having conversations about. This ain't me trying to say I researched nothing. This is just like me just coming out saying, like, look, this is all the things that's been coming, all the things that have been coming at me, and conversations that I've been having that I just thought was so interesting, And I shared with my homeboy today something that my friend's dad shared with me so many years ago, because he thought I was such a picky person in terms of a mate, which back then I will say, oh my gosh, I was super selective. But he told me, he said, Eunice, He's been married to his wife well over 30 plus years. And he's like, I love my wife. I love all my kids. He has 6 children. They're grown, all grown. I think they're all married, actually. Um, but he said, me and my wife didn't know what we were getting into when we got married. He was like, I knew that, I was attracted to her. I cared for her. She respected me. She was attracted to me. And we enjoyed each other or something, he was saying. But he was saying that we didn't know, what all we were getting into, but we knew we had similar values. And so we got married and we made it work, and he was like, I think a lot of times now, and he's talking about me specifically, we want to know everything, right? Everything before. So it's like, I got to know everything about the person, everything about myself, everything about the world, everything about all the different things. And that's how we can guarantee that this will work out. And he was just, I just don't think that's true. He was like, there needs to be some type of knowing each other and knowing things in the process, and you got to trust the process. And of course, at that time, that sounded really not just another thing that made me be like, see, that's why it ain't for me then, because I'm sure plenty of people did that and they are miserable. And I don't want misery. But another friend told me that an older couple at her church who were married like 60 plus years, and this has stuck with me. She said that the wife was miserable for a large part of their marriage. And then once again, they've been married for like 60 years. So they probably got married based off some junk like, you just lived across the street. And so I'm going to marry you, a single boy. And then our parents going to have us get married. And so anyway, but she said that what she realized is just like happiness is a choice, misery is a choice. And that has stuck with me for a long time. Misery is a choice. And not on some like somebody beating you half to death or treating you like trash kind of thing, and I'm just going to be happy about it. That's not at all her situation, their situation, or what that means. But I think that's something to really think about. Misery being a choice. And what do I feel is causing misery? Because this is the thing. I know people who have been unhappily married, and those same people are unhappily single. And those same people are unhappily remarried. I know people who are unhappily with kids. I know people who are unhappily without kids. And I think more than anything, I think that's the rounded way I'm gonna use it. It's not any specific situation, right? But I think it's to look inside yourself and to really evaluate where your source of happiness is coming from. And what do you think will really make you happy? And is it really those things outwardly, or is it something that you need to do some internal work on? And ultimately for me, I see it as a situation of knowing who you were made for and what you were. I think it's an issue of worship. I really do. But that comes out in so many different ways, right? You could worship self. You could worship the person you're with, which we talked about that with my friends in terms of how many times people get married and they're so involved with this one person, they don't have no friends. I talk to more women about this. Like they want their husband to be their best friend in the same way that a woman would be. Not that he can be your best friend, but he's going to be a different type of best friend, right? So we talked about how like there are some women who just totally lose all their womanness in terms of with other women, right? Like having those relationships, and they lose themselves. And so it's really part of your unhappiness. It's not necessarily a man that you're with, but it's like you don't even really have any decent friends. Because you gave all them up for this relationship. Or vice versa with the guy. Like he ain't got no decent homeboys for real. Or homeboys who are for the marriage because he spend more time with, the person. And so that can breed discontentment. Have people, or when you don't have people in your life other than your spouse. And there are some people who that works for, but there are many people who it doesn't. And so we talked about that also being tension in marriage, but also just the beautiful challenge with children. Children are a lot of work. My mom says it all the time. Children are a lot of work. Children are a lot of work. And I don't have any children. Um, I I'm an auntie. I have friends with kids that I love on and I'll take whenever they desire me to. But even with me being in the hospital yesterday, I was like, you know what? There are plenty of women and or men who are taking care of their children who sick is not an option. So they grind and they do their thing because guess what? Can't nobody take care of their kids. Unfortunately, right? That's why we need to have a village. We got to have a village because nobody should feel that way. Nobody should feel that they can't get the help that they need with their children and trust with people that they can trust. That's the other aspect of it, right? It's another aspect of our choices. You can't even trust the person that's supposed to be their uncle, their daddy, their mama, auntie, because of different situations going on, right? Listen, we can talk about that for days, months, years, because there's a lot of scarred people because of our choices. And though we can't go back, my thing is, it ain't about going back. What you gonna do going forward? Like, what are you gonna do? What choices are you gonna make going forward? Like, it's not about, well, my past and I did all these things, blah, blah, blah. Like, I used to live like that. And I used to trying to make up for it, but not in healthy ways, right? Now I'm just like, no, like the choices I've made are the choices that I've made. I'm working on myself and I'm gonna help other people along too, in whatever ways I can. I mean, not that I know everything or have everything, but you best believe I'm not just thinking about no more. Like I'm not living in this world by myself. And I know there are plenty of other people who may feel like that they are. So the fact that I don't have dependents, I can be of more of assistance in some ways than people who do have dependents. And dependence can mean your parents. I got friends taking care of their parents right now. They don't have children, but they have parents who they have to take care of. That's a reality too. People's realities, change and they're complex. And, we gotta learn to work with people where they are. And so this is my last thing though. Remember my homeboy just talked about this. He was like, yo, Euless, I was trying to kind of hook him up with a friend of mine. And he was like, she probably ain't gonna want no man who got a child. And I was like, you know what? I never really asked her about that personally, but I'll ask